Hello there everyone, my name is Nathan Birch. In this video, we are going to introduce JavaScript just a little bit. I'm going to show you guys a bit of what JavaScript is, a bit of what it can do, and then I'll show you guys how I did this thing with the random joke here. First things first, let's just go to Google and just say, what is JavaScript? JavaScript, often abbreviated as JS, is a programming language that is one of the core technologies of the World Wide Web, along with HTML and CSS. As of 2022, 98% of websites use JavaScript on the client side for web page behavior, often incorporating third-party libraries. So if we look at just this web page right here, it looks like magic. I can type something into Google and it knows what to do with my response. It does a bunch of processing, and then all of this stuff pops up in the web page. Okay. Well, if I was just going to right click on this and say inspect, which I can do with any website on the planet, it will show, hey, I have an H3 right here. It says, what is JavaScript? Below that, I have a div. The div will probably have more divs, I guess, and spans and paragraphs and things like that. But all of this content will actually show up on this web page. I was just looking at the code for all of this. In fact, let me just bring this over right here. Might be a little bit easier to see. So if I just say, yeah, show me that, you can see I have a div right here. We go into it, we have that span with that date, and this span with that date. Now, the cool thing about all this, it's actually stored in a database somewhere. And all of these results that are coming up, they were not here previously, obviously. Okay, so what happens is JavaScript is actually able to get results from some back-end processing. So Google superpowered computers with really good indexes or indices, it gets a bunch of results, it sends it back to my browser, and then the browser is like, okay, now that I have this, I'm going to make a span, and I'm going to make an EM, and I'm going to make a div, and I'm going to make a paragraph, and I'm going to make some images from all these results that came up. With every single one, I'm going to have a link, or I might have a video thumbnail or something. But then JavaScript is how we're actually able to generate this content for the user to interact with, which is why JavaScript apparently is used on 98% of all web pages on the planet, just because of how used to this dynamic type of behavior we have become in recent years. Okay, now with that out of the way, let me just share a little bit of this. Okay, now there is some JavaScript here in this Google map, which allows me to interact with it. There's definitely JavaScript here in this Spotify playlist that's embedded right here. There's also even JavaScript right here that allows me to play this YouTube video in this web page. Now, the cool thing about these three, I didn't have to do anything for those. Google Maps, YouTube, Spotify, they provided me the code, and it's going to use their JavaScript somewhere else, and I don't really have to worry about it. This, though, this random joke, this actually is using JavaScript on my side of things. And when I click on the button, it runs a JavaScript function, and it goes and finds me a new joke, which is kind of cool. So if I look at the code here, actually here, oh, there we go. All right, so if we look at the code, let's see, it was in that card. We have random joke. Notice we just have regular HTML right here, but I do have this on-click attribute, and it says new joke. Now, if I look in the header, we'll see several, in the head, we'll see several references to JavaScript files and CSS files, but among them is this dadjoke.js. Okay, now I should be able to, open a new tab. Okay, that opened it up like over here. I don't want that. But if I just go into sources, into scripts, I can find this dadjoke.js file, and I can actually see what this JavaScript looks like. Okay, and again, you can see this on any website. I could pull it up on Google's. So this is theirs, and I can click on sources. There's going to be a lot more here. It'll be a lot more complex, but it's here. I can see their code that's running in my browser. We call that front end or client side code. Now back to this, nice and simple. So this one says window add event listener load. So when the page loads, we're going to run this function. And also, anytime the user clicks on that button that had the on click on it, it'll run this function as well. So what it does, it says, hey, let's find an ID on the page, and then we're going to retrieve a dad joke, and then we're going to add that joke into the HTML of that location on the page. So if I look back on my elements, I have this ID called dad joke. So in JavaScript, when I say get element by ID, dad joke, it's actually going to find that div, and I can do anything with it. I say, hey, set the HTML to nothing, so it'll clear it out. I can change the styling on it. Okay. Get dad joke calls this function up here, and it's actually going to another API, to an API at this location, and it's going to send a request to that URL with these headers, which is just what they want us to do. And then once we get a good response back, that's what this 200 means, then we'll go ahead and just return that value. And so down here on line 22, well, right here when it says joke equals get dad joke, that joke will come from right here where this function returns. We have this joke, and then I can say, hey, let's go ahead and put it in the HTML of the dad joke ID, and then it shows up like magic. Okay, it's pretty slick. It's kind of fun too in the developer tools here in Google Chrome. I can actually test out JavaScript. I can say, I'll make a new variable with the word let, and I'll say let my age equals 30, and then I can say I can see what my age is. You can see it's 30. I can also say console.log, which will just show something in the console. I can say my age plus 5, and it'll actually, oh whoops, I have a little typo there. JavaScript is very case sensitive, okay, but it'll actually be able to do math for me. I could run that function if I wanted to, but yeah, so it's pretty cool because I can kind of play around with JavaScript in here, see how different things interact, and then I can actually interact with it on the page as well. So that was a very brief introduction to how we're using JavaScript in here. But one thing that I would recommend, if you just go to YouTube and you say JavaScript tutorial for beginners, you know, you can get a really good feel for some things that you can do with it and how it works overall.